Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of these Scicomm COVID-19 chats. We're honored today to have Siva Shakthi, and I'll let her introduce herself shortly. But so the point of these conversations is to really understand what science communicators are doing in this time of COVID-19. As you can imagine, we did a survey on Twitter and we saw bimodal distributions where some individuals in science communication are extra busy, some are not, and everything else in between. And so what we're trying to learn is sort of the why, the how, the when, the what, all those components of the elements of these practitioners, if you will, that are in this space of communicating science. So Siva, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yes, thank you, Fanwo, for having me here, first of all. So, I'm Siva Shakthi. I'm a final year PhD student at the Indian Institute for Science Education and Research in Thiruvananthapuram. It's a city in the south of India. And I work in the area of fiber optics, and I'm writing my thesis right now. But one of my interests, apart from doing science, is communicating science, and that's how I got into science communication in the first place. And what I do for science communication are like, there are different aspects for science communication, right? One is science popularization, and then there are different aspects to it, but something that I do is debunking myths related to science, and myths and pseudoscientific claims. That's what I do. And at this time where the pandemic is there, I think what I'm doing is taking up the claims that are being circulated on social media, on different social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, and then with the help of my friends and fellow scientists, I try to debunk these myths, and then we try to spread, or we try to send a message in different Indian regional languages, because I find that the awareness is lacking in a lot of Indian regional languages. So that's what I try to do. So, in short.
So make sure I understand you're translating essentially content.
Yeah, I
Is that
translate. I don't just translate the content. We also debunk the myths which are there. For example, there are a lot of WhatsApp forwards which you receive every day and which are not really true, right? So from a scientific perspective, we try to debunk those myths and misinformation, and then we also translate the content. We write the content, we translate the content into different regional languages, and then we send it out. We publish on the website, and then also circulate it on social media.
I see. So what medium, you mentioned a website, but what medium are you using to,
It's the written medium. It will be mostly published on the website, which is I call this club the No Nonsense Science Club, and you can check it out. Yeah. So, and mostly I try to popularize the content on different social media platforms like Twitter. We have a Twitter handle. We are there on Instagram. We are also there on Facebook, and so that's pretty much where we.
I see, because that's always the thing. What is the platform, right? Because you will reach different people
Yeah.
depending on what platform you're in. So who is your audience in this? Who are you targeting, or does it not?
Uh, we try to target the lay audience, so this is not something too scientific. The content that we write is meant for the lay audience, for someone who it should be it should be accessible even to kids who are like about 12 to 14 years of age. So that's the kind of audience that we target. So if we are able to target that kind of an audience, so it should be automatically accessible to people of higher age groups as well, right, with almost little to no literacy. So we also try to in while trying to debunk these myths, we also try to simplify the science and then debunk it, so that it becomes better and easily accessible for people.
Okay. And you mentioned WhatsApp. Has that been playing a huge role in this? You're saying these forwards that are happening and the misinformation, right, that could be taking place there. Is that a source? Is that a major source of these things, would you say? At least where you are, or
uh, I think especially in India, I think not just in India, also worldwide, I think WhatsApp forwards are playing a huge role in spreading the misinformation, because every day, whoever you are, you're getting plenty of WhatsApp forwards, be it in your family group or your friends group, and we don't really think before forwarding those messages. We kind of, like the moment you receive a message, you're going to forward it to like 10 other people or 20 other people, and that has become a pandemic in itself, right? And as someone with a science background, I think it's essential for me to think about those messages before I forward them, or before I deal with them, or before I even tackle them. So that's when the idea came that like, why not do something to debunk those myths which come as WhatsApp forwards, and then probably spread those message, the right message, uh, to people,
yeah.
like
So how do you so give us an example of a debunking that you did recently? Because I think one of the questions that I'm always wondering is, the information is changing so quickly, right?
yes,
It's
yes,
changing rapidly. What you thought yesterday was true is now old news, and in fact is incorrect. So
yes.
if you so how do you balance that, debunking it one way, and then but how do you then predict, how do you know the sort of
So there is some information that is downright stupid. For example, there was a myth in India. So there was this claim. Okay, this probably might not sound right for some people, but I have to tell this. So what happened was, the prime minister made a statement that on a particular day, everybody has to come outside and they have to clap their hands in unison at 5 p.m. on a particular Sunday when the lockdown was still on. And so that it's a way of showing gratitude to the doctors and other people who are working towards the coronavirus and protecting us from coronavirus and COVID-19. And people did that. Okay, I do not object to that. It's okay, we have to show gratitude to the doctors and everything, but there's a certain way you have to show that gratitude. You have to maintain the social distance while doing that. But what happened was, eventually people came out and they did it in unison, but while walking in the streets, they made huge processions. They were all going together in the streets and doing that. And very soon messages started circulating on social media that like, clapping hands together is producing a particular frequency which is going to kill the virus. And apparently NASA had detected it, and NASA scientists are surprised by how this happened. And that was totally stupid, because there is absolutely little to, I mean, there is absolutely no evidence as to how that is possible, right? So we took that up, and then we debunked the myth. We had to do very little research. They said that a particular detector had detected this frequency of the signal that was generated during clapping, and we found that NASA had no such detector with it. Okay, the NASA satellite had no such detector, and also clapping has a frequency which has nothing to do with killing the virus in the first place. So that was one myth we debunked, and that stopped there. But there are other myths which is possibly a little difficult to debunk. For example, there is a myth like the pets cannot spread COVID-19. So that was a little difficult to debunk, because there are some evidence which says that pets can spread coronavirus. On the other hand, there are some sources which say that pets cannot spread COVID-19, where the wordplay becomes very important. You have to tell them that it's probably not possible, but we still don't have enough evidence to show that it is the case. So that's how, I mean, so some myths are generally quite easy to debunk, while some myths are really difficult. We have to have access to different people, like we have to talk to different scientists who are actually working in the area of immunology, or some other related areas, to debunk these myths.
so you do the hard work essentially, right? The myth comes along the way and you say, okay, let me go and do the work, do my reference check, right? And
Yeah. It's like a fact checking thing,
yeah,
basically.
a
Yeah,
fact, right?
checking. Yeah.
So do you see yourself as that, you know, especially for the audience, right? Because I asked the question earlier about who's your target audience. Um, is it challenging at times to think about who essentially is going to receive it? Because some people may not be at a level what they can understand, right? So I wonder, so how do you balance that? Like,
So what we do is we try to write the article as simple as possible. We try to remove all the jargons and technical terms from the article in the first place. So
mm,
that's pretty much what we do, because otherwise there is no use, because the article is going to be read by common people most of the time. It is not meant for the scientific community, because the scientific community already has access to all these information. They
mm,
might ignore it, but they already have access to it. This is meant for the common man, right? So what we do is, the first thing is we try to remove all the technical terms and the jargons which are present in these messages. You know, for example, you might have to call virus as a foreign body which infects your body, you
mm,
know, because virus itself is a technical term in the first place,
yeah,
right? So similarly we try to come up with these terms. And then next thing what I do is that I feel that we have as human beings, we have a very low attention span. So we try to keep these articles to less than 300 words, because anything beyond that, people are again going to forward without thinking, right? If I'm
mm,
going to even send this verified message, people are not going to think it in most of the places. They'll be like, okay, Shiva has sent this message, let me just forward it to 10 more people. They're not going to think, right? So that's what we do. So those are two things that I keep in mind while writing the articles. Like, not just me, like most of the articles are written by I and another friend of mine who is also a part of this team. And
mm.
so while writing, these are two major points that we keep in mind
Okay.
while
And
writing content.
how do you measure impact for you at least, or how do you hope to do so in the future? Because right now, I guess you're spreading the information more so, right? Trying to fight the misinformation. But what do you hope, or what are you hoping to track, or what are you tracking right now to tells you that you're going the right direction?
One thing is that we measure the impact by seeing the response that we get on Twitter, or the response that we get through different social media platforms. On one hand, people do like it, people do like the idea, but it's not very huge, you know, because there are other groups which are doing such things. For example, in India, there is an initiative called the Indian Scientists Response for COVID-19, which is a huge initiative, which it is done by a collection of big shots, you know. So that has a better reach than what two PhD students together can do, right? At least at this point it's not big for us, but like even a single retweet or a single like is a big motivation for us, and that's what keeps us going.
Mm,
So that is pretty much what. So most of our impact is measured through the Twitter feedback that we get, or the Instagram feedback that we get, and sometimes the stirs that it creates in the society. So recently we wrote an article which kind of created a stir in the society in the social media platform. And you know, you have to be ready for anything when you're doing something like this, because people won't always like what you do. Sometimes you might even get trolled, right? And we were trolled once, and but I think you have to be ready for that while doing things of this sort. Yeah.
and you go into my next question about the challenges you've faced so far. So you mentioned trolls. What are other challenges that, you know, as you are out there doing this, are facing?
Uh, one major challenge is that I don't really have as many translators as I would like to have, because I would like to do this in all the different Indian regional languages as possible. And also one of but I don't really have translators for all the different languages. As of now, we are only doing the translations to about some 7 to 8 Indian regional languages. So that is one thing. And the other challenge, as I already mentioned, is being trolled on social media, because some people believe so firmly in that myth or in the pseudoscientific claim, or especially if it is being made by a political party that they are worshipping. You cannot really stand up against them and say that scientifically it is not accurate. They are not going to believe that, right? So these are, I think, the main challenges
I think the
in doing.
access part of it as well, right? I think you're doing something great here, trying to translate the content as well, because not everybody has equal access to this information, right? And I think that's there's another group, you might know them, Lotus STEM, run by a group here, I think in Canada. And so they've been also doing these videos, YouTube videos, translating the very basics, in Bengali and all these other languages
Yeah.
that can increase access, right? But again, yeah, the challenges are there, right? And the information is always changing. This is the hard part. So for your case, when individuals, I wonder if you've tackled this, when they come to you and say, Siva, you said this before, but now it's, you said X, now it's Y. How do you, and, of course, science, that's the beauty of science, it updates, right? How do you communicate that? Or how have you tried to communicate that?
So one thing is that we shouldn't be arrogant while communicating science. It's not just while debunking myths, it's also while communicating any kind of science that you know, because there are always perspectives on how to approach a certain problem, right? So let's say I have said a certain thing and another person comes and says that whatever you have said is wrong, because these points do not are not in favor of your argument. What I would do is I would have to first listen to whatever they are saying in the first place, go back, do some research again on whatever the person has said, and then make a clear statement. Maybe like again talk to a couple of experts about it. If I'm not able to make a stand on a particular argument or a statement, it is always better to go back to an expert and talk to them about it. And talking about that, that was another big challenge that I faced. So what happened was, while debunking some of the myths related to coronavirus, we contacted a lot of scientists, and a lot of scientists came forward, and when we sent them the mail saying that, okay, this is a small initiative by a team of few people, and this is the motto of the group, would you be able to help us? They were like, yeah, we will be able to help us. But then every time we sent questions to them, we did not receive an answer, and that was a bit disheartening, because and we don't know why they don't really give us answers, despite the fact that they have responded positively before. So so that's another challenge, especially when you're not because I'm a physicist, so I can take a stand when it comes to a physics problem, or if it is something to do with solar eclipse, I'll be able to tell you much better than when it is about coronavirus. So fortunately, the other friend that I told you about, her name is Rupkata, so she is an immunologist herself, so it was much easier for us to debunk some of the myths related to coronavirus. But still, it's always better to have an expert on board while doing certain things. So that's another challenge.
And taking your time as well, because I think you can easily give up there if they're not responding to me. But you have kept on going. You have waited. You have sought other experts. I'm curious: are these experts globally located? Are they in India mostly, or?
No, these are global experts. We have tried contacting people from all over the world. We have tried contacting other PhDs, postdocs, or even professors, doctors, and so on.
Okay, okay. 'Cause I think that's another good thing that you
Yeah,
diversify that
yeah,
expertise, so you get
yes,
first perspective, right, on
yes.
what you're trying to approach. So lots of challenges I hear, right? So
Yeah.
you the link to your where these publications, your 300 words or so, are located, because I think that's something that the viewers, I'm sure, will be curious to learn about, right? And
Yeah.
for you. So what's next for you and your initiative?
My next plan with this initiative is that I want to take this up or for the challenge community as well. I want to make the club more inclusive. So I want to take it up for the hearing impaired community. So I'm trying to contact people from different non-governmental organizations, non-profit groups, and even different hospitals, asking them for volunteers who will be able to translate the content into Indian Sign Language. There comes another very big challenge. I spoke to the National Institute of Speech and Hearing Institutes Authority, and they told me about a very big challenge that I'd be facing, which is that the content has to be simplified even further. The content has to be simplified to an extent a second standard kid would be able to understand, which is like, oh my god, that's a lot. Because there are not a lot of terms, even virus or microorganism. Even microorganism is a word they cannot understand. There is no sign language, a sign for microorganism. There is no sign for certain scientific terminology or jargons, and that's pretty much why science is not very much accessible for the hearing impaired or the impaired community.
Yeah.
But
And
that has been my dream always, to make the club inclusive and to take this initiative to them as well. So that's the next step.
I
Yeah.
and I love that you're approaching this from an accessible point of view, right? How do we increase access? I think that's a very, very honorable thing that you're trying to do here, and it's a lot of hard work, right? So, what
Yeah.
what what keeps you going? And so, there's two questions there: what keeps you going, and so forth, and also, what help do you need from the community, from people like myself, our organization? Yeah.
So what keeps me going is I think I've got a bit of support from both my friends and my mother. My mother is my biggest support. So when I initially told her my plan that I would like to start something like this, she was like, "Okay, will you be able to manage?" The only question she asked me was, "Will you be able to manage?" I was like, "Let me give it a try and let me see what will happen." And she was like, okay, go ahead, because it costs nothing to give it a try, like
Right.
success or failure, it's just a trial. So I gave it a try, and I wrote the first article. The very first article was what is a virus. I and my friend wrote it, 300 words. We published it on the website, and then we called for translators. A couple of them responded, and they translated the content really well. And then we called for illustrators. A couple of illustrators responded, and it's completely voluntary. And when I see that so many people are actually willing to make information accessible to people, it makes me really happy. So basically, I've just created a platform. This is not a one man army. There are so many people on it. There are content writers, there are translators, there are illustrators, and we have designers who have to make Instagram posts, and so on. And everyone is taking their own time to work on it, and everyone is so young, and everyone is either a PhD student or a master's student working on it. So it gives me a lot of motivation that I have to keep this platform running. Now it is like it's my job to keep this running, so that's what keeps me going. Yeah.
It's passion.
And it's
Yeah.
passion, it's a lot of passion.
How can we help
Yeah.
you?
Yes, so how can you people help me is again by giving me a lot of support, by if you would like to popularize it somehow, you can popularize it. And if you'd be able to refer us to some translators who will be able to help with us, that would be great. And also, as of now, we don't need any kind of monetary support, because we did not start with money in the mind, so we don't need any kind of monetary support. All that we need are more manpower to work on it, you know
Okay.
and to work on the next stage of the project. I'm really looking forward for some at least a couple of volunteers, at least two volunteers who would be ready to make those videos in sign language for people, so that I just want to give it a try. Again, it's a I know it's a very wild idea. I know people haven't tried. People at the National Institute of Speech and Hearing even warned me that, it's a very, very wild idea. Are you sure you want to give it a try? But I'm like, yeah, let's give it a try. Why not? What's bad in giving it a try?
You try, you experiment, you learn, and you improve, you iterate.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Siva, this has been fantastic talking with you and learning more about your initiative. You'll be sending us all the links so we can put them down in the chat there so people can learn more about your initiative. So you are a physicist, you're a science communicator, you are passionate, and so I'm really excited to see where this initiative goes. And all the great work you're doing. And so we look forward to keeping in touch and seeing where it goes. To the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us today again for this other wonderful conversations today. And hopefully we'll see you soon for our next iteration with another science communicator. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very well. Thank you.